everybody. I am James Beecham, founder and CEO of data security company Alter, and welcome to a special episode of Rabbit Hole Reviews Abroad. Happened to be traveling with my wife this week, but wanted to continue the series while we were here. So, coming to you from lovely Istanbul, Turkey. This week's topic is going to focus on something that is near and dear to my heart as a data security researcher and company operator for a long time. That is application security. When you think about data security, there's always the at-rest component that we're thinking about in terms of, bad guys breaking into the infrastructure or insider threats associated with taking entire hard drives or entire storage file systems worth of data. But for the most part, data leakage is done through applications, primarily because these applications face the public internet, which is where you have nearly an unlimited number of threats, especially as these AI agents start to pop up. And that's actually what we're going to talk about today a little bit is AI and application security. For those that are unfamiliar with application security, you might also hear it called pen testing or penetration testing. This is where the red teams and the blue teams come in. One's an offensive team, one's a defensive team. And most large companies employ folks to do this. And it's a very difficult job because at any one time, and a business might have 5,000, 10,000 publicly facing resources that need to be protected. Developers are developing thousands of lines of code a day, especially now with AI coding agents. Those lines of codes are only growing faster and faster. So application security teams have a very tough job of trying to pick and choose which types of threats to go focus on. You can always look at an application and probably find areas where data might be insecure, but you have to ask yourself, how realistic is the exploitation of these? There's an entire set of ratings and rankings for the different types of exploits. The acronym is CVE. I'm actually blanking right now on what CVE stands for, and I probably should re-record, but I'm not going to. So go look at the CVEs. You can go look at them for many different popular open source projects as well as so well-known applications in there. So application security teams are tasked with finding vulnerabilities in applications that are the most likely to be exploited. Most of the time, you only report those back to the developers because you only have so much political capital, in that you don't want to be asking your developers to constantly take their foot off the gas in terms of creating new features or new applications to solve vulnerabilities or issues that may or may not even ever present themselves. And so it's a fascinating read if you're not familiar with the world of CVEs. Go read about them. So hard job for application security engineers. AI is increasing the amount of code that businesses are running. So wouldn't you think that AI solutions are going to be able to help with the security of these applications? Well, it turns out that might not be the case. Got turned on to a great post by one of our board members that's called "Less Wrong" is the name of the forum or of the blog area, and that "Less Wrong" is by Ruby Raymond Robert M and a name that I'm probably going to mispronounce, Hybriyaka. So apologies for that last name there. And it was a post that was titled "Recent AI Model Progress Feels Like Bullshit" by LC. LC was mentioning that back in June of 2024, this person and a few other of their colleagues decided to start an application security company, leveraging some of the large language models to help them or help developers and companies find issues in their applications. What they're reporting is that the most recent progress in these models is starting to diminish, and they're starting to find that between, say, versions 3.5 and 3.6 of Cloud, for example, they're not seeing as many gains inside of these systems. So it went down the rabbit hole both inside of this post as well as a few other sources and started to understand kind of what's been happening with these models. Why does it seem like these AI gods that are out there from Anthropic and from OpenAI that are purportedly going to rule the world, why are their systems no longer making the progress that real world people need to feel and see? Yet the benchmarks show they're increasingly gaining in popularity. The chatbots and even my parents are starting to use these systems now. So on the surface, it seems like these models are getting much better. But for a practical use like application security, this person LC feels like they're getting worse and they're not making much progress. Um, to the point where inside of this post in one of their areas, LC, the author, mentioned they were afraid to publish some of these results, so they went and talked to a number of other Y Combinator founders. I assume that means LC is associated with Y Combinator. I probably should look that up too, but that was one more click that I didn't go on. Um, and now they feel comfortable publishing this after speaking to other folks and looking at the benchmarks. And so I learned about something called Goodhart's Law, which is something that the author of this post believes could be happening. Goodhart's law is a law that states when the proxy of to measure something becomes the target of what the output is supposed to be producing, that proxy is no longer a good piece of measurement. An example that Goodhart's law gives is from the Soviet era, when it came down to manufacturing shoes. The proxy was how many shoes the factory can make per day. So the factory began making really tiny shoes, and their numbers increased dramatically. So that's just an example of when the item in which you're looking at to measure the output of something becomes the target of the output system. You can no longer trust that metric or that proxy is to be used. And this author feels that the benchmarks that are being used to measure these different large language models is no longer a good measure, because it just appears that these models are getting better and better at producing the benchmark results that we all want to see and want to hear. A couple of reasons for this potentially. We're learning that the large language models are not very good at remembering items. And so maybe the benchmarks that we're using, such as the standardized tests, are not very good measures of actual intelligence or actual output capabilities, because they're mostly just kind of simple question and answer type systems that don't require much memory. And this author had a really interesting point. There's a benchmark called Claude Plays Pokemon. And this is a benchmark in which these AI systems are playing the popular game Pokemon, which requires you to have to remember things. And these systems are doing okay at the game, but not great. But if you have them look at maybe an AP bio test or some kind of bar exam for the state of California, they're acing it, and you would think these things are the smartest systems in the whole world. So, what I learned was to really question the progress that these models are making, really listen to the people that are putting these models into practice every day. Application security seemed like a natural place for these progressions and for these advances to help. I still believe that these AI systems are going to play a critical role in our future, but for now, we need to be very critical of their measurement and really make sure that the Sam Altmans and some of these other folks aren't out there spewing bullshit that we all have to follow and listen to without actually having tested it. So go look up Claude Plays Pokemon. Start looking at your models from that perspective. Thank you all for listening to this episode. It took me a while to get to the bottom of this one. Hopefully, you'll stay tuned for the next one. Thank you very much.